All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Listening to the interviews with Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski, I understand, the relationship was bridged between the Norv Turner offense. I was wondering, because of that influence, were they going to run similar concepts to Norv, or were they going to run the offense, but more so in a more modern sense?
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, I think the offense could be different. How different do you think it will look, and what do you think will be different? And we're going to hear from a guy that covered Ken Dorsey and knows it. And we're going to also take a look at some things that offenses with Andy Dickerson have done later in this show. But what do you think this offense will look like moving forward?
Well, in reference to the caller, I think you'll see some explosive elements that were like hallmarks of Norv Turner's offense. But Norv Turner's offense was predicated on 7-step drops. That's not happening. They're not going to be running much of that. But just from what we know, it's $1 million question. What's it going to look like? Well, with Ken Dorsey, we know that there's a ton of RPO game. The one thing that I look at the most that no one's really talking about is in Dorsey's offenses, there's been a lot of choice routes built in, coverage beaters, so to speak. So if a defense comes out into cover 2, as long as the quarterback and wide receiver see it the same, there's already things like fail-safes built in to bail them out of certain situations. So that takes a while to implement. It takes a while for quarterbacks and wide receivers to get on the same page. But after they do, it's almost like a cheat code. So I know that'll be in there. A lot of 12 personnel, a lot of a tight end move situation where you have a guy line up in the backfield, a tight end who can motion out and create mismatch problems. The one thing we won't know until we actually see it, is how much motion is going to be involved. Because the Browns were low on motion last year, and Dorsey's traditionally been low on motion. But if you look at the way the league's evolving, that is something that is coming into play. You don't know how much input a Tommy Reese is going to have. So that's the missing element. We know there's going to be shotgun. We know there's going to be a ton of vertical game. That is another hallmark of Dorsey. So we know those things are coming, but what we don't know is the motion. And I think you need to implement that in today's NFL.
Yeah, one of the guys, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in a couple of segments. So Andy Dickerson has some roots with Sean McVay, and that's a guy that does plenty of motion. So that's kind of, we'll connect the dots there. The other thing is, do you think they play more 11 personnel? If it's me and I have the opportunity to get Cooper, Elijah Moore, and Jerry Jeudy on the field, I don't know how many people. The Browns have 3 cornerbacks that can cover them. I don't know how many other teams do.
Yeah, that's something that has to be leaned on heavily. You have differing skill sets, a wide receiver, and there's plenty of full speed now. You adding Jeudy to along Elijah Moore, and even though Cooper's not a blazer, he doesn't lack speed. He's not the guy who's going to take the top off. But now you have other areas you can do that in. So yeah, you have to try to create mismatches, and there's an interchangeable feature here with Moore and Jeudy, where you can kind of mix and match. And Cooper's actually been historically great in the slot. Doesn't get a ton of opportunities at it because of how valuable he is on the outside. But now you might see a mix and a match, so when they get an 11 personnel, they can keep defenses guessing.
Yeah, the other thing is you find the weakest link defensively and you attack it relentlessly. And you've got 3 guys that should be tough to match. Again, the Browns can match up with it. Their toughest matchup, those wide receivers, is going to be in practice if they keep Craig Newsome. And you've got Ward, Emerson, and Newsome. Not many people can do that.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron. The ability for those guys to go at it, especially in training camp, is going to be something. They're going to come out of that better for it, that's for sure. And even when we talk about these mismatches the wide receivers are creating, you can't forget they have David Njoku. And now you have a third down back in Nyheim Hines. They have options. They have ways they can figure out answers. You know what I mean? If defenses want to approach them a certain way, they take something away, they're going to have to give up something. And now the Browns have the skill players to take advantage of that.